All right, so what do we got going on here in the real world garage today? Well, as you can see, it's rainy and crappy here in central Mississippi. It's the weekend before Christmas, and we've got to start working on this 327 S10 swap. All right, so those that aren't really familiar with this project, this has been an ongoing conversation between me and my son for, I don't know, almost 2 years. So if you're not familiar with this 327 project, it's because we haven't talked about it on the channel very much. I do have it backed into my shop. As you can see, I have a single bay shop and it just barely fits inside. So what are we looking at? Well, this is the 4.3 19, I think my son said this is the 89 model. And what we're going to work on today is start removing some of the extraneous junk around in the engine bay and start working on getting this front clip, inner fenders, bumper, grill, and all that stuff off so that we can pull the motor and start fitting the new 327 to fit in here. So I've never done one of these before. I'm gonna have to figure it out as I go. It's basic mechanics, so let's get into it. Well, got a little bit done there. Got the hood off, got the rain tray off, cowl vent cover. We're trying to figure out what else needs to come off because I wanted to try to remove this clip as one whole piece, and I'm not exactly sure what I need to do that. So it's a lot of figuring out as I go. I'm thinking the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and drain my radiator and see about taking it out. We wanted to not discharge the air conditioner, but that's just not going to be a possibility. That is what it is. It's just going to have to be drained. Now, one of the things we are going to try to do is try to use the serpentine belt on this mid-60s block, and fingers crossed that we can even make that work. It's going to require some drilling in the heads and the block to get all that figured out. I don't know. First time doing this. I've tried to see if there was any other videos out there to kind of get a reference. I don't see anything. I've looked. Maybe I'm not looking in the right place. But anyway, so we're going to dive back in and keep going with this assembly here and just keep piling up the parts, keeping everything that's going to have to try to come back onto the vehicle when we get done. We want to be able to close the hood and everything look as stock as possible, and everything to continue to work with the exception of maybe the cruise control. But our goal is to be able to use the factory AC and factory alternator and charging system and be able to make it work like it is presently working. So, except just be a whole lot cooler with a 327. So, let's get back to work. All right, we've gotten really close to getting this front clip to where it'll come off. Give me just a second, I'm gonna set up. I'm gonna show you exactly where the bolts are. All right, so there are several things that you need to undo to make the removal of this front clip possible. So let's go turn around here and I'll show you what they are. All right, so you can see that the front bumper's gone. The filler panel just above the bumper's gone. The grill is gone. The headlight doors are off. And to get all that loose, it's pretty simple. Once the filler panel's gone, it's right above the bumper, right along in here. There's 2 nuts on this frame horn. There's 2 nuts on this frame horn, 13 millimeter, and they come right out. And then there's bumper support out here on the end, 13 millimeter, and you can get right to them. I use my electric ratchet and 13 millimeter. I know you guys that live up north are mystified that I'm taking a 1989 model truck apart with hand tools. I have not broken out a torch, not even the first time. This is an all original, and it's a little rough. It's got surface rust on it. It's got some body damage, but it's all coming apart with hand tools. So, continuing on. Once you get the bumper loose, the grill out, and all this stuff off the front, you have some body mounting bushings right here. It is a 15 millimeter bolt on top, and this is it right here. It's 15 millimeter, and it's an 18 millimeter on the bottom. These can be pretty rusty. You know, I even had a little trouble with them here. I had to take a long cheater pipe and hold it up top and break it free on the bottom. It was, like I said, it was pretty tough. You rust belt guys are probably going to be cutting them off with a torch. But I was able to get them to bust loose. Now, continuing on. All right, so there's below the cowl panel. That's why I have to take the cowl vent cover off. That was one of the first things I took off in the time lapse. There's 2 bolts here, and there's 2 bolts at the top of the fender on that side. And they come right out. Most of the bolts you're going to be dealing with are 13 millimeter heads, and this is what they look like. Most of the stuff that holds this front clip together, that's what it looks like. Now, let's go over here on this side and talk about the electrical. There are, on mine, on this 89, there's a couple of relays, and they mount right there to the inside of the fender, right there. You can unbolt them and just lay them out of the way. They're not part of the equation on removing this front clip. You have the electrical connector right here, and you have to get it disassembled, and it just plugs into the firewall right down there. That's a 1/4 inch bolt head right there. You undo that, and it backs that connector out of the firewall. Then you have to separate this plug. These right here are mounted as part of that connector. You can see where they came out. It's that section, and here's the other one. This is for the headlights up front, and it's this section. And yes, all that black tar looking stuff down inside there is perfectly normal. GM did that from the factory, and that was the way they prevented water and corrosion from eating up the connectors. It's worked since 1989. The connections are still good, so I'm not going to argue with them. But all that is, like I said, it's for the front headlights, front turn signals, and anything electrical on the front of the vehicle, and it connects to the firewall right there. So you can bring it up and just lay it to the front. That's where you make your division. Don't forget, lay it out here. You've got your hood release cable, and it drops down there, and you can just tuck it out of the way. Trying to hold the camera and talk at the same time. There you go. Just get it tucked out of the way. It drops in, it tucks in behind the booster and goes inside. That is your hood release cable. Now, there are some more mystery bolts. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you, but we're going to give it our best shot. All right. Up inside, right there, you can see the one, and it's actually still lined up. You can see there's a bolt there, and you can just barely make it out there. In my shop, I can just barely get the doors open enough to get them out. If this truck was sitting outside, it would open, the doors would open wide, but those bolts are, whoops, forgot that hangs off. Now, I'm gonna crawl underneath and I'm gonna show you where the bolts are in the inner fender well and the one that holds the bottom fender. All right, one of the other things that you're gonna have to pull, I noticed as I was coming around here, wasn't thinking about it, there's a ground strap that hooks right by the passenger side front headlight. You'll need to undo those wires and keep up with them, remember where they are. The battery tray also sits right here. It's loosened by those two bolts to the passenger side fender and one bolt right there, and that goes to the front of the core support. And there's one bolt right there at that big hole, and it comes in from underneath the fender well on the passenger side. Moving to the back of the passenger side fender well, there's a bolt hole there that holds it from it's a mount from the cab, and right there is a mount that attaches the inner fender well to the cab. This is the same on the driver's side. These same bolts are on the driver's side as well. Now, we're going to move underneath the truck and I'll show you the last bolt that holds the bottom of the fender. All right, so we've gone underneath the back side, and on the back side of the fender, on both the passenger side and the driver's side, there's one bolt that comes straight in through the rocker panel and attaches the bottom of the fender and holds it to the truck. After you've got that undone, the whole front clip, you should be able to flop it around, and with a buddy and a little bit of work, you ought to be able to lift it off. All right, where we left off, we needed to recover the AC. Check, that's done. Undo the transmission lines. Check, that's done. Any miscellaneous other connections, cut, removed, and it's going to stay with the cab. Check, that's done. Now it's time to lift this front clip off. Let's see if it'll come off. You ready? Yeah. Never done this, so we don't know what we're doing. Let's try to pick up just a little and go forward if it will. All right, what are we hanging on? I'm hanging on the hinge. Okay, lift it up. Let's lift it up and pick it up by the hinge. That way it's not hanging with that. All right. Okay, it's free of the fan. All right. Well, it's coming up on my side, so pick up harder and pull forward. There it is. Going back is going to be a treat.
Oh boy, can't wait.
All right, come on. All right, whoa. You forgot a vacuum line. That's why I kept those cutters handy. You got it? Okay. All right, keep coming. That went easier than I expected.
Yeah, definitely.
Going back's going to be a treat. All right, I do hope that helps you locate where everything is and saves you a little time. None of this stuff was hard. I could see where it would be very difficult if this was a Rust Belt S10, but this truck has lived its entire life here in southern Mississippi, in central Mississippi, so everything is coming right apart with hand tools. The hardest part, I think I said, was the front mounts on the radiator core support, and with just a little bit of a cheater pipe, all that stuff came right apart with hand tools. So we got more work to do to try to get this thing swapped over to the 327. And if you're not familiar with that, I'm going to drop a video right here that talks about that 327 and how much he paid for it, and let you hear it run. So we got a lot more work to do, and while we're getting ready to do all that work, why don't you go watch another video coming on the screen right now.